Thanks so much for making our tails wag by watching this guest interview from Arden Moore's Four-Legged Life.
Pause up, pet pals. Welcome to Arden Moore's Four-Legged Life Show. I'm your host, Arden Moore. Now, do you know what to do if your cat got bit by a dog? Or if your dog started choking on a chicken bone and passed out? It's hard not to panic, right? Fortunately, help is here, and just in time for the holidays. Our special guest today is one of the country's top experts in emergency medicine for pets. And he's a pretty cool guy, too. For about 2 decades, he has been saving the lives of pets. He is now the founder of the Frisco Emergency Pet Care. It's a hospital in Frisco, Texas. Without delay, let's give pause and applause to Dr. Mike LoSasso. Welcome to the show, Dr. Mike.
Oh, well, thank you, Arden. Good to see you again.
Glad to see you, man. He is one of my superheroes, everyone. As many of you know, I am a master certified pet first aid instructor, and he's one of my go-to guys. And he has helped me very much be able to give good information out to people who have pets and those who want to become instructors. I miss you. I hate COVID, don't you?
It was not a good time.
It was not a good time. And I can only imagine that your ER hospital was a hopping during COVID.
We got extremely busy. All the emergency centers across the country got very, very busy as staffing shortages and people calling out sick affected day practices, as well as curbside slowed everything down. The emergency clinics really got a lot more work than they were prepared for.
Yeah. How did you handle it? Because I think one thing I really want to address is the mental game and the emotional state, both for the pet parent and for the veterinarian, because it does impact what the pet is sensing, right?
Oh, absolutely. Dogs and cats both definitely feed off their, I'll say, owners, their pet parents. And of course, in an emergency situation, everything is amped up from an emotional level because, you don't come see us unless you have to. This is
Right.
not routine stuff. You're not coming in for a well visit or for vaccines. We don't do any of that stuff. You come when your baby is sick or injured, and that always creates fear.
So how do with the staff? Because you as a veterinarian, how do you keep yourself in check? And in my classes, I think you taught me this. I said, everybody in class, in my pet first aid class, you all have permission to freak out later.
Yes. Yeah, no, you can't panic. You don't really have time for that. Panic is incredibly inefficient.
Yeah, there's a good phrase.
So yeah, the staff, my staff does a stellar job, keeping themselves calm and just moving on from one to the next. I think we do a pretty good job calming and reassuring owners when we can. Some of what comes in is a difficult conversation. We actually are, since the last time I think we probably spoke, we've added 2 full-time social workers to our staff. We're the only hospital in the country that has taken that step. A lot of the university systems have one, but we're open 168 hours a week.
That's 24/7, 365, right?
Yeah, and one person just couldn't give us the coverage we needed. So it's fantastic to have them involved.
That's kind of a new trend. So tell us a little bit more. What is their role? Give me a scenario and what they could do.
They do a couple of functions. So they're both master's degree licensed social workers, and we look forward in the new hospital to taking on interns and expanding this for the industry. But
oh, nice.
What they really do for us is they're there for our clients, for people that are grieving because they're facing an end of life decision, or even more challenging are those folks that are trying to figure out whether that's the right way to go. I can give them the medical advice and say, look, this is what's going on, but ultimately the decision is theirs. As the guardian, as a pet parent, sometimes those things tough choices fall on you. And I've been walking people through these decisions for a long time, and I think I actually do it reasonably well. But who does it a whole lot better than I do are people that are trained to deal with people's emotions. Um, they're also a huge boon to my staff because the staff needs to decompress. And um, so they are very, very helpful when it comes to
I love this.
personal challenges and just the burnout and compassion fatigue that can strike in veterinary practice as well as in human medicine when you're running and blowing and going and my folks work long shifts by choice. They work 13 14-hour shifts. You're not only physically exhausted but mentally and emotionally by the end of the day. So they're kind of our ambassadors of fun is the actual title they like to have.
Oh, wow. I think I got a new job career I'm looking for.
Yeah, that's so they handle the birthday celebrations and those kinds of things for us, as well as that very important dealing with clients. But trying to keep everybody happier and on an even keel is really important to.
So word choice, body postures. I mean, can
Mhm.
you give me an example of something maybe one of them helped somebody with? I mean, you're working a long day and you're getting a little frustrated, pets aren't making it. What's some things that they do for you all? I know.
Well, they keep a variety of things in our little tiny staff room. Looking forward to a bigger one. The adult coloring books and those kinds of things. But when they go in, they can certainly decompress. One of the biggest things is to really regulate your heart rate. So they will
Oh,
take them through some breathing exercises. 4-8 breathing. If you inhale for 4 and then exhale for 8,
oh
your
yeah.
your heart rate increases every time you inhale and it decreases every time you exhale. So by lengthening that exhale process and making it twice as long as the inhale, you can really bring your heart rate and your blood pressure down. It kind of helps with heightened excitement, and bringing things down and feeling a little bit more centered before you leave for the day.
I think right there, Dr. Mike, we've got about a minute before our first break. Have everyone that has an uh-oh happening to their pet take a take a pause, not the paw, the pause.
Right?
Inhale 4 seconds
Yes.
and then exhale slowly 8 seconds.
Right. Do that about 3 times, and you'd be amazed at how much calmer you feel.
I think that's a great, and then you're able to maybe focus. I always say we need to be in my cat Casey's a safety cat. We have to be in the
Mhm.
me now because we
Yes.
can't do anything about what happened. We're not future predictors, but you got to
Right.
stay in that present now lane, right?
Yes. Yeah, you got to stay in the now. The whatever else you're feeling about what happened is not really relevant. We can unpack that a little bit later.
Oh, I love this. Hey, everyone. We're speaking with Dr. Mike LoSasso. He founded the Frisco Emergency Pet Care. It's a hospital in Frisco, Texas. It is just north of Dallas. And he's the man to go to when you need some good ER advice. After the break, we're going to talk about a little bit about his center. It's growing and give you all some tips, good and bad, what to do during the holidays and beyond. So hug your pet, keep your pet safe. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Four Legged Life Show. I'm your host, Arden Moore. We're speaking with Dr. Mike LoSasso. Just a little bio on him. He has been practicing ER and critical care medicine on pets for almost 20 years, and he's been a veterinarian, he told me, 29 and a half years. I got that half in. And he created the Frisco Emergency Pet Care in 2016. And I got to tell you, everything in Texas gets big. What's happened to your humble center from 2016 to today, Dr. Mike?
Well, we knew when we started with 4,000 feet and 6 people that it was going to get bigger. We have grown from being a 2 doctor nights and weekends hospital to being we went 24/7 in 2018. We now have 11 doctors
Wow.
on staff and a total staff of about 65. So it has certainly grown, and we have we have grossly outgrown the building. We knew it was going to happen. We
Right.
just didn't know when. So happy to say that the new building is about 3 times the size of our leasehold. That'll be on Preston Road,
Oh, good.
uh, in Frisco, still between Main Street and El Dorado, just like we were on Legacy.
So
But
are you going to buy this, or you renting it, or what are you doing?
we purchased the land and are building this building. So it is they
Pause.
just
Applause.
yeah, they just got finally a couple months behind, got walls up last week. So still looking at a probably a March to April move-in date, but that'll
Oh
be
my.
nice. We've tripled the size of the building, which allows us to probably double the amount of pets we can care for. Um, have an indoor walking space that the staff is really excited about. We don't have to walk patients outside anymore. That's always,
Yeah.
I mean, it's the way the industry's done things for years, but I've always hated it. I don't like having dogs outside. There's traffic. We can't see what their eliminations look like from a medical standpoint. I don't know what
True.
they did out in the dark.
Yeah, you're sitting there
And,
feeding through the grass blades.
and I was just, the staff has talked to me. I don't work overnights anymore. I'm an old man, but the overnight folks say that they'll occasionally see the coyotes.
Oh,
Uh, just yesterday we were driving in Frisco next to the post office on Rollator, and she was a beautiful bobcat, but she was out in the middle of the day. Slipped down a storm drain before I could get a picture of her.
wow.
So those those risks are there. So we've got an
Well, there's
indoor
a couple
walking
of
spot.
trends. I mean, you have social workers now. The building
Mhm.
will be larger so that the pets that are being at your place while they're mending, you can really find out because pee and poop are big clues, aren't they? Let's
They
get into
are,
it. Let's get into pee and poop.
yeah, no, they are definitely important. Of course, in what we call emergency medicine, a lot of it is really more urgent after hours care, but 60% of what we do is GI upset.
Okay.
And
Oh,
so
wow. Okay.
it's a it's a glorious profession, dealing with diarrhea more than half the day, but it's a problem and it needs to be addressed. We also have a much larger isolation unit that has its own separate indoor walking area.
Wow.
Um, so it's trying to make sure that we're taking care of everybody and not exposing anybody to something that they shouldn't be. We'll add a 3D CAT scan. That's going to be the
Oh, wow.
most exciting equipment add. We still do a lot of endoscopy, but that 3D CAT scan is going to really allow us to see more than what X-ray or even the ultrasound is able to show us.
Well, you've come a long way from when you were working at the Animal and Bird Hospital in Plano.
Oh goodness, yes, that is quite a bit different. Yes.
How did you get into the field of veterinary medicine, and what made you say, I dig the ER stuff?
Well, the decision to go into veterinary medicine was made so long ago. I really don't remember.
Were you in diapers? I mean, what the heck?
Well, I was living in California, actually in Nevada at the time, and next door neighbor had a whole bunch of horses, and I was just fascinated and said, I think I was 6 or 7 when I said, this is what I'm going to do. Uh, and the family brought us to here to Texas, 1977, and so A&M was my route. Um, my
You're
dad had
talking
gone to
about
college.
Texas A&M, very, very good university.
Yeah, it's a good vet school. It's a great university. Um, yeah, I didn't think I went there for undergrad, and then I did 4 years of vet school there. So it was never a question to me of where I was going or what I was doing, which sounds great. And a lot of veterinarians will tell you that. What they don't tell you is that they didn't think of a backup plan, and it's a
Yeah.
really good idea to have one.
Yes.
Um, I didn't apply to any other schools besides A&M, which is not the smartest thing in hindsight, but I got in, so everything turned out okay.
Right.
Um, and got into vet school on the first try, which is also,
Unusual.
didn't have a backup plan for that either. So,
Are you all
uh,
listening, you veterinarian wannabes? He's giving you good advice. Okay.
yeah, have apply to more than one school.
Mhm.
Don't give up the dream, but apply to more than one. Um,
What's been your
and then
biggest? Oh, go ahead. You have some. Go
and
ahead.
then in it was about 2003 when well, it was right before the twins were born
Mhm.
that I started just for extra money at that time was working some overnight shifts in an emergency hospital down in Dallas, which has since turned into a med vet, which is a beautiful hospital now, but different than what it was when it was on Markville. Um, and found that the fast pace, that the variety that I really needed, because honestly, as much as wellness is important and having things vaccinated is important for disease. An annual physical is just like I go get my annual physical. Those things are critical. They're not my thing.
You don't get giddy.
I know, and yeah. So I found the rigors, the monotony of day practice. Day practice can be incredibly rewarding for a lot of people, and God bless them because I need them,
Yeah.
just like they need me. Nobody else wants to be up in the middle of the night dealing with some of these problems and doing surgery at 3 o'clock in the morning. Uh, but I found originally, before, it's funny you mentioned the animal and bird hospital. I said, the thing that will make me fulfilled as a doctor and bring some more interest in is adding non-traditional species. I'll see birds and I'll see reptiles,
Nice.
and because then I won't be having the same flea conversation with every owner and the same heartworm conversation with every dog owner. I'll have this really varied experience and I'll be so happy. Yeah, actually, with exotic animals or non-traditional pets, yeah, 95% of that is husbandry, and you actually end up having the exact same conversation with those folks over and over and over as well. So, and finding good staff that can hold that macaw for his blood draw, or snakes can be kind of a challenge. So, um, when I forayed into emergency medicine, kind of on a oh, I have to make more money than what this day practice is bringing in. I was really bitten by that emergency bug and working on multiple cases simultaneously and not knowing what's coming through the door next.
I love
Uh,
that. Hey, we're speaking with Dr. Mike LoSasso. He is a leading ER and critical care veterinarian, and he is the founder of the Frisco Emergency Pet Care. It's a hospital in Frisco, and by springtime 2023, they're moving to a brand new facility, bigger in size, and have much more amenities and things to help both you, your pet, and the staff. We're going to dive into some holiday. I'm going to test the good doctor on some holiday tips so that we don't really see you this holiday season, Dr. Mike. So
Absolutely.
everybody, yeah. So everybody, you know the drill. Sit, stay. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Arden Moore's Four-Legged Life Show. I'm your host, Arden Moore. We're speaking with Dr. Mike LoSasso. He is the founder of the Frisco Emergency Pet Care Center, and we need to give that website out. You want to go ahead and shout that out to us?
Well, it's kind of long.
That's all right. We got strong typing fingers.
That's right, but it's easy. www.friscoemergencypetcare.com.
All right.
It
Frisco
also means I have
Emergency.
the
Go ahead.
it also means I have the longest email address I have ever had.
It isn't just Dr. Mike at er.com.
No, no, I gotta get that whole website in
All
there.
right. Frisco Emergency Petcare.com. I want you all to check that out after the show. So the holidays are on the horizon, and it isn't just holidays, but it seems like our dogs, cats, and other critters seem to get into an uh-oh situation, Dr. Mike, on a weekend, right before your vacation, on a holiday. Do they have something against us? What is it? Because you seem to pick up pace on
Oh,
those times, right?
they do seem to have a sense of timing. Things things go wrong. It's not just your life; it's mine too. Everybody listening, things go wrong at the worst possible time, and certainly happens with dogs and cats. Right before you go on vacation, while you're on vacation,
Yes.
so yeah, it's a challenge.
So let's go through some things because I want people to separate fact from fiction.
Okay,
And you're the man. So everybody listening,
well, I will
you're
try.
okay. Your dog or cat gets really a bad scrape on their torso, or they got bit. and it's bleeding. So, good doctor, should I just reach for the bottle of hydrogen peroxide?
Well, uh, number one, all bleeding stops. But two, peroxide is really good for getting blood stain out of jeans. Um, but it is really not something that you want to put on any living tissue. Peroxide is actually pretty caustic. You can't see that effect, but it definitely will kill cells that it comes in contact with. So it's our folks my folks used it. My folks also used mercurochrome. So, I mean, that's how old I am. Um, so, no, I would stay away from the
So it's destroying the
peroxide.
healthy tissue. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
just put a little pressure on that. And that, depending on what's going on, certainly if a little pressure is not enough to stop that, then you need to seek attention. Do we have an artery bleeding? Do we get cut deeply enough? What confuses a lot of people is actually you can have a pretty good sized laceration that doesn't cut through enough blood vessels to actually bleed very much at all. Um, and sometimes we'll see those later on, especially with grooming accidents. People with
oh yeah.
and cutting the mats out behind the ears will actually cut with nice sharp scissors. The dog didn't even move, didn't even feel it, but there's now a 2 or 3 inch laceration back there that isn't bleeding but needs to be put back together.
I'm going to test your memory. Everyone, because he's one of my mentors in pet first aid, one time I was at your ER clinic and a guy walked in with a big old lab in his arms and he had pulled out the dog, somehow yanked some nails out, and he came in the ER lobby and there was blood spraying all over. People were ducking, walls were getting splashed. And you all took him in the back, the dog, and it took a long time, but you had to use silver nitrate to finally stop the bleeding. But I remember you said to me, which is a good piece of advice I want you to share in more depth. You said, "Oh man, I wish he would have called ahead. I would have left him in the back door because he has now traumatized the entire lobby." And it was a crazy night in the ER.
They certainly can be. Those nails that they get worn down, or you cut them. If you cut them too short, and maybe the dog was relatively relaxed, but then gets excited and blood pressure comes up, and now he's bleeding from all of his feet. A lot of times when people call, we'll have them put flour or something else on there.
Oh, just regular flour from the kitchen.
Regular flour from the kitchen increases surface area and helps kind of a clot form. The reality is especially with toenails,
Yeah.
if you just let them calm down, put them somewhere where they're not going to make a mess,
And
that will
elevate
actually
above the heart. I always say, me, everybody pause up.
Yeah.
There's a pause up time, right?
Just if you just let them be out in the backyard for 10 or 15 minutes, most of that's just going to stop on its own. Those things are typically not necessary. Now, if it's so bad that we've got to use silver nitrate sticks, I hate those things. If you've ever used silver nitrate on yourself, you'll know that it's exquisitely painful. But if the other mechanisms that we have won't work, then sometimes we have to resort to that. Generally, those guys are sedated because it is painful.
Yeah, you did help that Labrador, but that it looked like a war room in your lobby. Yeah. So
Yes.
I think if you have a really nasty trauma, don't you think it's, even though you're going to the ER, it's always good to call ahead? You guys want to be prepped, right?
Well, we do like to know that it's coming. The other thing that happened really with the coming of the lovely COVID virus is that all of the emergency centers got so overwhelmed, and we're still that way, is that sometimes we will have to close to new patients.
Wow.
It's not a decision we take lightly, and not something any of us want to do. We got into the profession to see pets after all. So when you show up at the door and we say, "I'm sorry, we can't see you," it's because there's no, people get confused because there's no cars in the parking lot. It doesn't look like there's anything going on.
Good point. Yeah.
What you don't see is in the back, I've got 10 critically ill patients that are all trying to die in spite of us. And there's only 2 or 3 doctors, and we're doing everything we can. We physically cannot take on something else without really altering the care we're trying to give to some of these critically ill guys.
Well, I'm
So
glad you brought that up. Yes.
yeah, absolutely call ahead just to make sure that you can be seen. And of course, if this is during the day, call your primary veterinary care provider, what we call your
And
day
there is,
vet.
I know there's a vet telehealth too that's
Hmm.
kind of growing too, and maybe that can help on some mild to moderate cases, right?
Right. Telemedicine certainly can help because you found a bump on your dog or something that is not, it doesn't seem urgent, but you want to get somebody to look at it. I think telehealth is going to expand quite a bit. It is not something that we are in any way, shape, or form prepared for in emergency medicine. It's kind of like the concept of working from home. Yeah, we can't do that.
Yeah.
We have to
Yeah.
be
Did you
hands
work
on.
from home during the
Uh,
COVID, Dr. Mike?
so, um,
Yeah. Yeah,
it
that's a good point. But
it doesn't
it's a
work that way.
good compliment to be able to help triage what is needed to go to the ER and what is not. The holidays, even beyond the holidays, Dr. Mike, we are bringing foods in and other things, and the whole routine in the house has changed, and dogs and cats are both curious. So let's talk about the theobromine that's found in dark chocolate versus that artificial sweetener xylitol that seems to be popping up in everywhere
It-
in even peanut butter.
yes,
So tell us about the dangers of those two things and what we can do as folks with our great pets.
certainly. So, dogs are theoretically sensitive to theobromine, which is the form of caffeine that's found in chocolate. Chocolate season started for us on October 31st, and it ends after Easter
There you go.
because we have Halloween followed by Christmas, followed by Valentine's Day, followed by Easter. So for half the year we are inundated with, oh my God, my dog got into chocolate. The realities of chocolate are not quite as significant as maybe the media would have put it out, or people always assume that, oh, my 100-pound Labrador ate a Hershey's Kiss. He needs to go to the emergency room. And we see those. If those people would call us first, we'd say, don't do that again.
Yeah.
Because the reality is there's just not enough there to do anything, probably not even stomach ache in a dog that size.
Okay, well,
Chocolate.
we're gonna be taking a break real quick because I want to
Okay.
get back to chocolate versus xylitol. I feel like a
Yeah.
Jeopardy quiz show, but let's take a quick break and come back with Dr. Mike. So sit, stay, and keep those chocolate bars away from your pets. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Four-Legged Life Show. I'm your host, Arden Moore. We're talking with Dr. Mike LoSasso. He is the founder of the Frisco Emergency Pet Care. It's a big growing hospital in Frisco, Texas, just outside of Dallas. He was talking about chocolate versus I always say theobromine. Is that right? Or I'm a radio host, can't pronounce it. And xylitol. And it's not good for dogs to have the dark chocolate, obviously, and some can have a reaction. Continue on. But I want people to know that xylitol is creeping up everywhere and they're calling it birch sugar.
Yeah. Xylitol is the devil, and we'll definitely want to get to that because it is a scary chemical. So going back to chocolate, realize that the darker the chocolate, the more caffeine is going to be present. So in white chocolate, which my wife will tell you is not actually chocolate,
You go, Dr. Heather.
there's essentially zero caffeine in white chocolate. Milk chocolate has a little bit more. Dark chocolate has more. Really expensive dark chocolate, the 83% stuff has more. And then baker's chocolate is actually the very worst. None of us would eat that, but
No,
dogs will. So keep that in your pantry. Baker's chocolate actually will cause the real problems we see with caffeine. Caffeine is a stimulant, and in dogs, not only does it make them wired for sound, it also potentially causes some heart arrhythmias and can cause some major problems. But you've got to get into a lot of it. You've got to almost want to be toxic with chocolate. So if your dog gets into chocolate, before you freak out,
don't freak out. Freak out later.
call us and let's talk about the amounts and exactly what it was, because chances are you don't need to do anything.
Okay.
We do have, I mean, we'll be vomiting chocolate dogs because they come in. but if they didn't come in, they would probably be just fine. So call your provider before you get too excited about chocolate.
Okay.
Xylitol is a totally different chemical. So xylitol it's a sugar alcohol. It's not even a sugar. And this is a fantastic sweetener. It's about 1,000 times sweeter than sugar. And so for people, especially for diabetics, it's a great thing. It does not cause an insulin release in people. So it's used from everywhere from hard candies to toothpaste to there are even some products made specifically for dogs that have xylitol in them, and I really question those water additives. But the toxicologists tell us that there's so little xylitol there that it won't make a difference. But there's really no reason for a dog to have something sweetened. But people and dogs are different.
Yeah.
And what we see in dogs is when a dog ingests xylitol, their system thinks that 1,000 times more powerful than sugar is actually sugar. So dog eats certain forms of especially gum, the orbits, the kind of the squishy squares.
Yeah.
Have got a tremendous amount of xylitol in them, and so the dog's body thinks he just ate a 5-pound bag of sugar, and
Oh no.
he releases a tremendous amount of insulin to counter the sugar that isn't actually there. And if you take insulin when you don't have high blood sugar, then you get really low blood sugar. And we certainly have seen some dogs come in. They walk like they're drunk. They're very weak. Their blood sugar is incredibly low. And these are 100-pound Labradors that got into mom's purse because she left it on the floor and she chews sugar-free gum. So be really cognizant of everything you've got that's sugar-free. We use peanut butter to give medications to our pets or to give them as a treat or to give them their heartworm pill or whatever you're using peanut butter for. There are now some, not the big companies, but some of the smaller and the organic peanut butters that will actually put xylitol in instead of sugar. So make sure that what you're giving your dog does not contain xylitol. There is also, in addition to this really easy to understand low blood sugar problem, they end up hospitalized with us for a couple of days sometimes, is there's a dose effect. The more xylitol they get, the more likely it is to happen, but there is a real good chance of liver failure that we don't really understand quite yet. But that's obviously not something that you want because liver failure is kind of hard to come back from.
So in for the holidays, people are coming over. Get those purses off out of paw's reach and read the label of the peanut butter before you give it in a Kong or whatever, because unintentionally you could be taking your dog to see you.
Yes, absolutely. Xylitol is the number one toxin it's the number one most avoidable thing. If you just knew, if people just knew that xylitol was toxic, and it's a weird word, XYL is the way that starts.
That's a great Scrabble clue, man. You'd win a lot of money, a lot of points on that.
You get that on a triple word.
Well, let's go for the holidays too, because how do you keep your house safe? What kind of pets do you have as the holidays are approaching, Dr. Mike?
Well, I am fortunate and unfortunate that I've got just one dog at home. Fantastic girl. We just
What's
love
her name? She's listening.
Her name is Bubbles, one of those really aggressive pit bull kind of names. But she is a blue pit bull, or what other people call gray, right?
I call pit bulls meaty cheeks, because when they smile, they got the meaty cheeks.
Yes, she certainly does. But that gray color in pit bulls and Dobermans and Great Danes leads to lots of skin problems. So we are constantly addressing her skin issues. And I'm fortunate that she's not a counter surfer, so she doesn't take things off the counter. She's extremely food motivated, but motivated for her food, which is I'd love to take credit for that, but she was like that when she came to me.
Well, Bubbles, you got mentioned on our show. That's awesome. That brings me to the point, counter surfing, because some people really are good bakers and they're letting the dough rise, either make bread or cookies.
Mm-hmm.
And it's my understanding there's a double whammy that can happen. We've got a couple minutes left on the show. What can happen inside the belly of a dog or even a cat that gets into unbaked rising dough?
Right. So if you're making bread with or something else with yeast, and usually cats could do it. Cats do some funny things, but dogs will generally eat that dough while it's rising, and that does a couple things. Number one is it continues to expand. It will rise in the stomach and gets pretty uncomfortable as it's taking up some space. But one of the metabolites that the yeast are doing with those carbohydrates, if you make beer at home, is alcohol. And so we are always concerned about actually alcohol poisoning in these dogs that get into the bread, as well as having having a stomach full of bread. So
wow, that's like you could die of alcohol poisoning, and it's like your stomach has become an oven.
Right. It certainly complicates things. So you can, I would advise you actually it's one of the few times I have you give anything. We actually encourage people, if they'll drink ice water, to have them drink ice water. That slows the metabolism down a little bit, and then get them in, because those guys need to be, we induce emesis, although in the veterinary world would just normally say barfed.
Yeah, you had me at that word. Word. We got a minute left. What's a message you want to give all the folks that are blessed to have dogs, cats, and other critters to keep the holidays safe?
Well, be really careful. Realize that those Christmas lights that you've had up in your attic, along with all your Christmas candles, that plastic smells funny and it smells good. Just be mindful if your dogs do, or cats, I've seen that too, end up chewing on the Christmas light strand, then unplug that before you touch them. Right? We see electrocutions, and those are bad. The other thing I would warn folks, especially the cat people, about at Christmas and at Easter. So at Christmas we have tinsel on the trees. That's kind of an old thing, but I think people still do it. They love those little strings, and those can be quite the foreign body. Easter grass typically is worse, but we see those things too. So just be really, really mindful if you've got those things in your home, that you're paying attention to what your pets are doing.
Well, I can't believe the show is already over. I've learned a ton of new things from you, and I really like that you're trying to keep it safe for our pets. I really appreciate you being on the show, Dr. Mike. Everybody give a round of applause for Dr. Mike LoSasso. Woo! So that's it for our show today. At this time, I do want to give a shout out to Dr. Mike and his team at Frisco Emergency Pet Care. And just go give us that website again, Dr. Mike.
That's www.friscoemergencypetcare.com.
Easy. I want to give a shout out to all of you listeners. I really appreciate Coast to Coast and our wonderful sponsor, Tevra, the maker of some great pet products. You can score a 20% discount. Just go to tevrapet.com. That's TEVRA pet.com. Enter the code Arden20. That's Arden20. And at checkout, ching ching, save some money. And also, I want you to visit our site, fourleggedlife.com. That's fourleggedlife.com. So until next time, this is your host, Arden Moore, saying to all you 2, 3, and 4-leggers out there, pause up. Pause up, pet pals. Thanks for watching. If you liked my video, please hit the like button. Also, subscribe to my channel. I want to keep providing you with great guests, special first aid tips, and yes, more videos of these guys. See you next time. Pause up!